Hey everyone, Sawmill Charlie, another Friday night bee chat. Hopefully everybody's doing well and all that. Let me go ahead and put up the link. It's starting to rain here finally after months, at least a little bit of a rain coming in. Come on. All right, I got everything. And it's pinned. So anyway, like I say, looking out the side window here, we're finally getting some rain, which is great. We've needed it terribly. And it's not a downpour, but at least there's some rain. Hey, Shane and Joey and Keith and let's see what else. We got Sarah and Mike and Randy. There's Lisa, Tytran, Stone River Bees, and which is JB. I think I got everybody here. Norman, there's Randy, and there's Ryan. Now, Ryan, I got a question for you. That's Peabody Apiary. I lost you. I watched your video today, and you're down in Southern Maryland, and you put Apiguard on, and I was wondering what the temperature was. Hey, Matt, when you did that, and all. So that's my question to you tonight. What was the temperature in June, and why did you put it on in June? Because we had a flow all the way up to 4th of July, it seemed like, and here. So, hey, Brian. So anyway, that's a question for Ryan, Peabody Apiary. Hey, there's Pastor Larry. And all that. Anybody wants to come on in, hit the like button or the like button, the link. Hey, Roy. So right now it's raining, which is great. Got into the beehives this week and checked out one of the nukes. I had one queenless 10 frame, and I took a nuke and basically put some brood in there that was medium frame brood. And there's Ryan.
Hey, what's going on, Charlie?
Hey. But anyway, to finish my story, I found the queen in there that I shook in. So that'll be an upcoming video. I just about got that done. So I watched your video today about Apiguard, and you did it in June. But I wanted to use it this year, but it's just been so hot And I'm very cautious when it comes to an acid like that
Yeah.
about killing queens and absconding and all that. I just jumped off of another chat. He put 20 milligrams in a 5/5 nuke. He had one of them abscond, one of them that killed the queen, and I'm like, I forget he, just a little while back, and I'm like, well, no wonder it's 95 plus degrees.
Yeah. So what I did, I've never used Apiguard before. I've actually never treated any of my colonies during the summer. I've only done spring and winter. So this year I decided I was going to try something. And I got the little green tub, with all
That's what I got. Haven't been used yet. Still in the box.
Yeah. So when I pulled my honey, I think the last pull was like the first week in June. And then I gave all my singles. I'm sorry, the first week in June. Yeah, was when I pulled all my honey.
Really?
Yeah, and down here, yep. And then
I mean, you're only a couple hours south of me. You should be more flow, I would think.
Oh, honestly, Charles, all we get is black locust and tulip poplar.
That's what I get.
Yeah, I mean it. I keep notes. I've kept notes for the past 10 years of when it's in bloom, and it only lasts about 4 to 6 weeks, weather dependent.
Yeah.
So when I took all my supers off, I gave them all a gallon of sugar water, and that was on there for about 4 to 7 days. They sucked that about halfway down because I took all their surplus honey, and I gave them all 25 grams using the little place cards on top of the frames.
Right.
The weather, but to answer your question, the weather was like 85 to 88.
Yeah, well, see, going by, I watched Bob Benny's 2023 video, and on the tail end of that video about mite treatments, he was back at the shop and he had those hives along that wall.
Yeah.
And he was talking about if it was 95 degrees, nothing goes on. Too hot. And if it was, he said 82, I'll say 80 to 85, he would put a full 50-gram dose on a 10 frame hive double deep. Now, what was interesting was if he's doing singles, he would either put 25 or 30 grams on. And I think the nukes were 20 or 25, something like that. He had a small hive there. He said he cut it down to 20 grams and all that stuff. But for me here, honey wise, I go April, May. Like last year, about the 20th of June is when I kind of, things kind of fizzled out. Now this year, I pulled the last of my honey around the 1st or 2nd of July. I finished up extracting on the 4th of July, and I went back 2 weeks after that really hot spell we had, those really terrible days.
Yep.
And there was, the only thing I can tell is that there is staghorn sumac is across the road. And it's a state right away. So it's gotten pretty big. And I'm running triple mediums in most of my hives, the majority of my hives. So when I take that top box off and I treat the 2 mediums like a single brood chamber, and I do single brood chamber management that way. And then when I get done, I put that 3rd medium back on, and that's more or less their honey super that they're going to fill up. And when I went back after extracting, and within 2 weeks in July, those supers were completely full.
Yeah.
Of nectar. We weren't capped, but they were full of nectar and everything like that. I mean, they were heavy enough to where I was using my hive lifter to put Apiguard strips on.
Yeah, heavy enough where you don't have to feed.
I don't have to feed right now.
Right.
I always feed the week after Labor Day.
Right.
I just actually personally this Wednesday I went to Pennsylvania to the restaurant store and picked up a pallet of sugar for me and my other neighbor that helps me harvest. And I don't know, we were talking about sugar or something here last week. I'll say Friday or whatever it was. And I happened to click on the link to that store and they were running a sale. So it cost me almost the same amount of money that it was last year. But
So what are you getting for a 50-pound bag? Or 25-pound? I don't know what.
That's 50. They're $34 a bag.
Yeah, see that beats me. I live in Southern Maryland next to the Amish. There's an Amish grocery store like 2 minutes down the street, and they just got a new brand. Their old barrel brand was $40 for 50. They just got another brand with cardboard packaging. It's about $37 and some change, but they don't have tax or anything, so it's just all cash. But the thing
was that Golden Barrel?
Golden Barrel was the more expensive because the packaging is real nice and I can stack them up in my garage. But the other brand they got it's cardboard, so it'll actually harden up on you with moisture.
I've experienced that.
Yeah, so
well, you got to be a member for this here restaurant store, and I happen to know somebody, so
yeah,
I got
that's a real good price.
It was $43.19 or something. It was basically 68 cents a pack or a pound or something like that. And I can look it up here real quick. Yeah, 68 cents a pound, $34.19 a bag. And before, that was the sale price before the end of the month. I happened to catch it just the right time.
Right. Now up by you, Charlie, the crops that they're growing right now, is it mainly corn or what are they planting around you? Because I was going to ask you about soybean.
Yeah, I seen that video where you had those blossoms there.
Yeah, because I noticed the bees are working that, and then I've seen people comment in my local club that they get a nectar source from that. Do you have any experience with that?
I had 30 acres of it here a couple years ago or last year, and I've never seen it. And I think, it's like there's a guy that comes on my channel, he quit beekeeping out in Texas for a while. He's getting back into it. But Jeremy talked about cotton, two types of cotton, the new cotton and old cotton. And the non-GMO cotton gives out a great nectar source because that's where he put his hives out in Texas. And the way I got it, the GMO stuff that people were planting doesn't. They've got it to where they want the plant to put that energy towards the cotton ball than a flower, type of thing. So I don't know. I've never seen any nectar source out of soybeans. I mean, around here, corn and soybeans are king. Everybody's got corn and soybeans everywhere. If that was the case, we'd be like Ian Stepler with canola. We'd have 200. We'd have 250 pounds of honey per hive. It's the way I look at it. This year we had a long extended honey nectar flow. Now, what it is, I don't know. We've talked about it. Now, there's some other clubs I belong to, and everybody's experiencing this. I don't know why or where it's coming from. I mean, I talked to the Sybil, the bee inspector. She says it was white Dutch clover. I'm like, I don't really see my bees on that. Usually the bumblebees are on it, and that's it. Very little nectar source. I mean, they're packing it away. They're packing a super away. The only other thing is spotted lanternfly. The last 2 years we had a fair, the first year they were everywhere. The second year, not quite as bad. This year I've seen two. So they put out a nectar source, like excreting basically sugar water, and the bees are sucking it up. And I'm wondering whether they're here and there's just enough of them to keep that flow going. I'm not sure.
Right.
They're,
Yeah.
they're invasive, but everybody says kill them, kill them. I said, well, we're getting honey. The silver lining is we're getting honey out of them.
Right. Yeah, I was just curious because when I was in the hives the other day, and I'm going to get into them tomorrow, and I mean I'm shaking nectar. So I mean I know I had 1 gallon buckets on all my colonies, but I leave that on there throughout the summer, so I don't have to take them home and whatnot. But yeah, I was like, this is weird. I mean, I got fresh nectar. I mean, when you shake a frame and it's nectar, they say it's within 24 hours. So
now Ben Schmidt here says if it's a white blossom plant, it doesn't yield nectar in Missouri, which I'd say that's about right. I don't know. Is yours white blossom? I think they were, weren't they?
they were purple.
Or purple.
Yeah, it was all purple. And when I pulled into that farm, I just stopped to see if they were in bloom at the front of that farm, and I was noticing bees on it. So that's why I figured that was it. Hey Charlie, how do you see the comments while you're on this?
Or you got a computer or what?
No, I don't even. No, I don't have a computer, just a phone.
I mean, are you on your iPhone? What are you on?
All iPhone.
There should be a comment thing in there. I don't know, guys. Anybody can help me out on that because I usually have a full computer. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Find it. Maybe a down arrow. How about a chat? You see where it says chat?
Yeah, I see the chat, but then I can't see anything else. It's okay.
You're on StreamYard, right?
Yes.
Well, I go over here off to the right. It has comments. See it? I don't know what
you think I'd be able to figure this out?
Think turn it around or whatever. But hey Mike. But anyway, that's what I was curious about as far as it's like right now. I would like to do Apiguard right now because if they did it, you find it shutting your brood down.
Yes. So I'm in my hives at the different yards, where I got 5 separate yards. But when I initially put that Apiguard in there, when I came back about a week later, I didn't do a second dose when I did this. I just went back a week later. I was just curious because I've never used it before. I had older larvae, did not find 1 egg, found the queen. So that tells me that I called some of my local friends around here that keep bees, and that used Apiguard. They said yes, it will shut her down for the first 3 to 5 days, which I wanted. So I was happy with it. And now they've all picked back up, laying again, and it didn't burn. I didn't notice any open brood burned or cap brood or anything. It didn't run my bees out either.
Well, you did 25 grams though, right?
And I only did it twice. I waited 10 days. So I did 25 grams, 10 days, and then did another 25 grams, and then went back 10 days and took all the little cards out. Some of them were disintegrated, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought you were going to do four doses.
No. I'm done. I did 2 25-gram doses.
Well, I mean, if you do a full strength dose, it's 50 grams every 2 weeks.
Right.
So I'm figuring it's 25 grams per week for 4 weeks.
Yes. But when I did my mite washes, it had knocked down the mites where I liked them. So I was just going to keep it at that. Now, next year, if when I do a wash, I'll check them. But all the yards that I was doing washes at, they were all 1s, 2s, and 0s. And previously they were higher than that. So,
Mm,
but
now,
yeah, I
yeah,
do know you're supposed to. I think my direction, you are right. Yeah, it's like four every 7 days, 25 grams or something like that.
right. Now, Dan here in the comments, I'll bring him up. He ran 50 grams and they hauled it out in 4 days. Now, Dan, did you you
Is
can
that a
come
was
on
that
in?
a
That's Apiguard, probably.
yeah? But was that a double 10 frame or single 10 or what kind of setup?
I don't know. Dan, won't you come on into the chat if you can, if you got a camera or something? But and if you don't, answer in the comments for me. I presume it's a double deep.
Also, Charlie, I didn't say this in the video, but all my production colonies, I had knocked them down after the honey flow. I made a bunch of splits, so I took 3-4 frames of brood from all those colonies.
Mm-hmm.
So with the population being lower, I just decided to do the 25 gram. That I didn't have
I think I see. That's the thing. People say they'll get on here and they'll say the label's the law, number one, and the label says you can put it in there up to 105 degrees.
right.
And I'm like, I don't care what the label says. Let me listen to Bob Benny that's got 50 years worth of experience,
Yep.
or more, 60 years worth of experience. And when he says, I wouldn't even dare put it in the hive at 95 degrees because he had a friend in Illinois, I think, or Nebraska. And that guy's friend put it in there and pretty much decimated all of his hives because it was 50 grams. It was 100 degrees. And there goes all his bees down the tubes.
Well, that's like Ian with the Formic Pro.
Right. Well, now
Bert.
with me and here comes Dan. There he is. You hear there?
Charlie?
Yeah, I can hear you, Dan.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that configuration was a deep medium, and I ran it on about 6 different colonies. Performed about the same, hauled it out in 4 to 5 days. That's a 50 milligram shot on each one. So it was pretty crazy.
Now, was that on the top or in between the deep and the medium box?
No, that was on the very top of the medium.
Okay.
You had brood up there, right, Dan?
No. That's their. I run a single management,
Mm-hmm.
and that super that's above the excluder is their store's super.
Right.
So there's still an excluder on there, but that's their super. I don't take that super.
I like that. Yeah.
I just want them to fill that up, and then come the end of the month, I'll pull the excluder and let them have access to that. That'll be their winter food. In the springtime, she'll lay it up. But
and then when she lays it up, I've always found that interesting. Like, how do you, first thing is you got 2 different size frames.
Mhm.
And that's like with me, I'm running 3 triple mediums. Everything's, up until this year, everything has been mediums across the board. And which I can swap and do whatever I want to do. I mean, it is an extra 10 frames in another box. But when she lays that up in the springtime, so what do you do? Put that down on the bottom, put the deep up on top?
No, when it gets to a certain part of the spring, she's laying in both boxes at that point. She's half in the bottom and half in that
Half
medium.
on the top.
It gets to a certain point, I'll grab her, I'll chuck her ass downstairs, I'll throw the excluder on there, let that brood hatch out, and let them start backfilling that and preparing that. That's the first super of the season that gets filled with honey for their fall or for their winter stores. And then I start.
All right, so that makes sense. Yeah, where you leave it there, it's there, they cap it, and then you just keep stacking supers up on top.
Right, and I got a piece of square blue tape on every one of those boxes, so I know to never take that box. That box is going to have a treatment in it or whatever. Whether I used Apiguard or Apivar, that super never goes for extraction. It may get pulled if it winds up being a dead out. It may get
Right.
pulled and thrown on another colony, but it's always at that point, it's always a stored super.
And you don't have trouble when you store that super once you extract it with wax moth because of the.
Oh, I won't extract that super. That's theirs.
I
Yeah.
like that. Okay, I see.
That'll never get extracted. That, like I said, if it
Yeah, the
wants to
thing of it
become a
is,
dead out, it'll just get put on another colony or whatever. And if for some reason I do have to pull it in and store it, it'll take a run through the freezer and then get stored. I have a 21 cubic foot freezer in the garage where I put in 5 boxes at a time.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I do too. I like the idea because the thing of it is, when she puts brood in there, trying to cut honey out of a brood comb I always find very difficult when capping. And where if you just leave it there, it don't matter.
No.
She's gonna eat it, then they'll eat it up in the wintertime, and then she'll backlay it with brood.
Yep.
When do you pull that excluder?
I'll do it from the middle of August all the way to the end of the season, depending on them.
Okay, so the excluders are on now.
Yeah, excluders are on now. Some of them are off. Weaker colonies, they're off.
Okay.
There's no reason to exclude them. I don't care if she goes up there now. They're a weaker colony. They got more honey than they'll ever eat.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's a good management. I mean, that saves you some money on some sugar too.
Yeah, it does. Oh shit! I'm on my tablet. I never did it on my tablet before. This is a pain in the ass. I'm like you, Charlie. I like the computer better.
Yeah, I got this new 32-inch screen. This really does well. But
yeah. It's a little bit of a bear to get a hold of in the spring when she starts laying that up and you're trying to reel in them from swarming and stuff like that. Because you're throwing her, you got to pick the time depending on your area. I mean, you're in Maryland.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're pretty much I'm in New Jersey, so we're pretty much all up in the same area, as far as spring flow and stuff like that. We're all around the end of April into May.
Yep.
So swarming and kind of, it'll hit Charlie first, then it'll hit us.
No, actually, he's south of me.
Yeah, I would get hit first. Charlie stays colder.
First, yeah.
He's about 2.5 hours south of me, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Is this your first year using Apiguard, Charlie?
Me?
Yeah.
I have not used it yet. I've been wanting to use Apiguard for the last 2 years, but it's just I'm very cautious about that. Just like like Formic Pro. Yeah. It'll say the high end temperature is 85. Well, that goes in probably around September. Usually September, I can get a window there that's 80 degrees or less with low humidity. And I talked to a knob guy and I said, I think humidity plays a huge part in this different fumigants. And no. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I disagree with you there.
Yeah.
I mean, if the humidity feels like it's it's 95 today, but it feels like it's 105. Well, I guarantee the bees feel the same thing when they get that kind of an acid in there.
Oh yeah.
It makes the acid actually intensify.
Yeah.
So I put the Formic on, the Formic on when it's 80 degrees or less, low humidity, and at least a 4-day window there before that's where the first, initial gas off is. And I haven't had any queen issues as far as losing any queens that way. And AJW. Then I don't know. Like I say earlier on, the guy up the road here in Pennsylvania, I put Apiguard on, I think it was last year. And I'm like, man, I says, I don't know where I mean, I know where you live at. I said, wasn't it 95 degrees or 90 some degrees, or 85 or 88, something like that, for formic. Yeah. I says, well, how many queens did you lose? And I lost 2 or 3. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you know how hard it is to try to get a queen now
Yeah.
time, unless you've got queens put away for that event and all. And I don't understand these people.
I have a real hard time with that stuff. I'm so leery. I'll use it if it's going to be like 70 out, but I don't know, man. And the colony's got to be in really bad shape. I got to have some really bad numbers on that. Some high loads like 20s or something. Then I might drop some on there, but I just don't trust that shit. I really don't. I was watching Peter up there in Maine today. Peter Callan. He didn't have he didn't have too good of things to say about it, and he's been using it and pushing it for years.
Oh, you mean the bee whisperer?
Yeah, he wasn't too happy about that stuff this time. I think after treatment, he did a post treatment, and he pulled like a 12 or a 15 after a post. And
What do you mean? His mite count?
Yeah, and he's been using this stuff for years and pushing it for years. That this is what he uses. This is what he uses, and he was upset. He didn't have too many good things to say about it. I was really surprised. I mean, he's got a bunch of colonies, and he's I watch his videos every once in a while, and it just kind of, I'm like, man, formic, I just don't trust it. Like I don't want to.
And then his mites also could have, they could have got a resistance towards it too if he uses it all the time, like you said.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with resistance and formic.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Because I was reading the comments on that video, and people were talking about resistance towards OA. And I'm like,
I don't know if that's possible.
Exactly. I don't know if that's possible.
Well, I talked to, I was just looking at a comment here. Here it is. Rick Sutton here is he always cuts the dose in half above 90 degrees. Now, Rick, if I'm not mistaken, you're a commercial beekeeper, and I think you were at Hive Life conference a couple of years back with maybe doing a presentation or whatever. But anyway, you can come in if you'd like. But one thing I have with OA, and this is personal experience, I tried OA from after Labor Day once a week until the end of October when the time changes. And then one year I did twice a week. And my theory was you're killing the thoracic mites. That's the same thing what Apiguard does. And if I can do it twice a week and I can keep killing the mites as they're coming out of the cappings, I'm going to get ahead of them. Well, guess what? It don't work. It don't work.
No.
So I finally succumb to the advice of the science folks out in the world that says, hey, you want a 98% kill? You treat
Broodless.
in the wintertime when it's broodless or damn near broodless.
It's funny you say that. I had one yard that was really badly infested this year. And
that's a different story. If you want a quick knockdown because you got a serious problem, do it anytime.
Well,
to get that knockdown.
I kind of followed. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Ralph Butchler, but he's a German beekeeper. Caging the queen, trapping them. Well, I took 3 colonies and I trapped the queens for 17 days. Left them on the one frame for 17 days. I needed to render them broodless because OA with any brood doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I've tried it numerous times over the years, and it just sucks in the summertime. You just can't get ahead of the mites. So I trapped them for 17 days, release the queens on day 17, let her start to lay. 18, 19, 20, 21, that's 4 days. That means any eggs that she has laid are going to be just 1 day old larvas on that first day. That's the day I go back and hit them with OA. There's no more capped brood in the colony at that point.
Right.
So that,
Well, what
think,
I do is
last
now,
week.
I ask people. I've been working towards a mite treatment program for what works for me
Mhm.
in my area. And right now I'm doing Apiguard because of the heat. I'd rather be doing Apiguard.
Mm.
Come September, I should have the weather window for Formic Pro. Once I get done there, then I start feeding, and I should be done feeding sugar water by the 15th of October at the latest. And
Well,
then I start OA treatments throughout the winter, most of the time
Yeah.
right around November. I
Yeah.
start, and if the weather conditions are at 45 degrees, the bees are loose inside the hive, but they're not warm enough for them to fly. So I don't have
Yeah.
to fight them by blocking the entrance off, because I use a piece of 1.5 by 2 styrofoam that you buy for the sheeting. I rip little strips like that off, and I got it to where it's just a little bit bigger than the entrance, and I shove that in there. Of course, I have the coroplast. I've got these little wedges that I make up, put them on all 4 corners to hold that coroplast good and tight. I try to keep 99 or 98, let's say 95% of the fumes inside the box. And I got a ProVap, and I go down the line doing it that way, and it works well. I try to do it twice a month. If the weather is, if I can get in there once a month, that's great. If I can get in there every 2 weeks, twice a month, that's fine too, as long as it's 45. I did used to do it at 48. 48, they're starting to fly out the door. So then you got to fight them, about trying to keep them in the house,
Yeah.
or the other ones are trying to get back in, all the foragers and stuff like that. So 45, I found to be a good temperature rating as far as them being loose in the high side hive and it being effective. And I do all the I vape them all the way through until the end of February, 1st of March. And it works for me. I got my bee inspector coming in here in our next 2 to 3 weeks. She's going to go through my hives for the National Honeybee Survey. They did this 3 years ago. She was a little bit later. She was more like close to October when she was getting into the hives. I was like a little bit,
Yeah.
I was
A
like,
little leery of that one.
well, it was a situation where it was like, it was warm enough, but it's like, I need to, I wanted her in and out before I started feeding. Because once I start feeding, I don't want to break these hives down. I want everything to get sealed up by them and stay sealed.
Yeah.
And so anyway, my report finally did come back after months later, and I had a 0.2 mite infestation, which
That's great.
a 1.0 is their recommended. So I was underneath of that. And then I didn't have the viruses, and I didn't have a bunch of other stuff that I had to look the report back up. But I find, I had one guy on some questionnaire thing. He asked me, I said, well, I use all the darn products. Then he said, how often do you treat? I says, 8 months out of the year.
That's good.
And I don't, now a lot of guys like Ryan there, you were saying that you treat in the springtime. I treat all the way through the winter up until the 1st of March, and then I quit. And then I don't treat March, April, May, June, and until about the last 2 weeks of July is when I start everything all over again.
I do pretty much the same, Charlie. I kind of beat them up all winter long, and then as soon as spring hits, I kind of back off. I want them to grow, and I want them to grow fast in the spring. And I pretty much don't do anything through the honey flow. I mean, I'm
No,
not.
I do not treat
touching-
on the honey flow at all.
Yeah, I'm not.
When the
I'm not
supers go
playing around.
on, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah, and then
And
once you
there's
hit,
now that also depends. Like if you live like where Cayman Reynolds is down in Tennessee, they have a problem with that because their season number one is 2 to 3 months longer than ours up here in Maryland.
wouldn't that be nice?
Well, I went down to Knoxville, Tennessee, back in 2019 to a honey show down there, and that was in February, I think, late February, early March. And down there, trees and stuff were in bloom.
Wow.
They were
February,
blooming. They were starting to have the spring bloom coming in, and they were a month, 4 to 6 weeks ahead of us. Easy.
Wow.
And then they go 4 to 6 weeks longer in the end of the season. And so they have a lot of different problems that because of their location in the country.
Yeah, we're pretty much done up here, and I would have to say, second week of July, we're pretty much done. If there was anything left, you could actually say the end of June. I'm pretty much have all my supers off by mid-July. I'm pretty much done.
Yeah,
Right.
we're July
Maybe a
4th.
straggler here and there, but it's petered out at that time. This
So-
year it's crazy because we ain't had no rain. I mean,
I know. It's
it's
terrible.
terrible. Goldenrod
Well,
needs it right
well,
now.
We had too much rain in May for me, so we didn't get nearly as much nectar flow as last year.
I did probably the best this year I've ever done as far as nectar flow, but
Yeah.
it's been a dry year. I don't know. I had a lot
Yep.
less swarming this year too. Last year I
Yep.
lost a lot of colonies. I couldn't keep up with them. The weather got me last year. I got way behind, lost a lot of swarms.
I want
You
to
get
say
that-
hi to Tom and Melissa. And I was looking at the comments here. Let's see. They were talking about when they're going to put on, Moore's Homestead. He was going to put Formic on. He plans on there it is. He plans on putting Formic next week. He's up in New York.
Well, 76.
Um,
Go for it.
It was, Charlie, was it brutal down by you today?
huh?
It was brutal up here today.
Oh, it was
Down
about
by you.
with the humidity, it was like 105 here.
It was
It was
terrible,
hot.
man. Christ, you broke the sweat
Matt's
bar
up
down my
around
elbow.
Buffalo, New York. So, he's supposed to get a
76
little.
degrees. Boy, wouldn't that be wonderful? I'll take that. That's like a dip in the creek.
Yeah, but so that's what I do for the mites and stuff like that. And it's been working. Like I say, I would like to get away from the synthetics and
Yeah.
go and maybe I need to do 25 grams. If it's, in the 90s or whatever.
Have
I mean,
you?
that's what Bob said anyway, Bob
Yeah.
Bennett.
Have you did any mite washes, Charlie?
I haven't lately, no.
Is he doing 25 on singles though?
Me?
No, is Bob Vinny. Isn't he doing 25
He had that on
singles?
his, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all. That's what I run as singles. I did 25.
How many colonies you running, man?
You took me?
Yeah.
50 production colonies.
A good amount. That'll keep you busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Rick Sutton here, he commented he cuts his dose in half when it's above 90 for Apiguard. And I know Rick is a commercial beekeeper up in Kentucky and Florida. I think he's probably running 1,000 hives. I think. I'm not sure, Rick, but he actually did some demonstration work down at Hive Life, I guess about 3 years ago, on how he was setting up cell builders and stuff like that, which I found very interesting. And all that. So, but that's what my plans are right now. I'm continuing on like it did last year. I was really wanting to put Apiguard on, but maybe I should have sacrificed a couple. I didn't really want to sacrifice any hives. I've had too many issues this year with queens.
I bit the bullet this year. I went 50-50. Half my yard's got Apiguard and the other half got Apiguard.
Okay. Well, maybe I can, instead of using Formic in September, you're saying it only shuts them down for about a week?
For what? Formic?
Apiguard?
Apiguard.
Apiguard.
Yeah, it shut mine down for about, but yeah, 3 to 5 days.
That's a 25. Okay, Rick's got 1,600 colonies. He's got almost as many as Ian does when he comes on. Ian's up around 1,800 or something like that. Glad you stopped in, Rick. Enjoy always having a good commercial beekeeper. I mean, we get several of them in here over the course of the night, especially a lot of them out of Canada. Ian stopped by occasionally, and Doug from Longman Apiaries, and Brad from Faith Apiaries. I know James, he's got his outfit, but he's down in Sturgis at the bike rally this weekend.
Yep, on his bike.
Yeah, he's on his bike. He's having a good time, it looks like, from the videos.
He's experiencing the heat.
Hey, Charlie, do you put have any nukes going through the winter?
Oh yeah.
What do you do? 5 over 5?
5 over 5. Yeah.
For some
And then
reason,
I've done that for years.
I feel like that's the best cavity size for our area.
Well, it's like, here comes Joey. Hey, Joey.
Hey.
Hey, what's up, Joe?
I got into discussion this other bee chat it's a local bee chat, and happened to be a bee inspector there, which I don't put a whole lot of faith in this guy anyway. Anyway, they were talking about putting Formic Pro on. Of course, it doesn't say it on the label. I says, think about it this way. I put them on my nukes, one pad. I says 5 over 5. I got a vertical deep hive. I got a vertical single brood chamber. You're talking about 10 frames horizontally in a single brood chamber. So I said, what's the difference? There isn't any. It's just the way it's either going up or it's going out. And I put usually the top 5 deep is more of a honey box that they, store their honey up for the winter time, and they're down in that bottom box. And I put that one pad in there, and I haven't lost any bees or queens or anything else with that. And mite treatments the mite lows are fine.
Yeah, they'll argue with you that on a 10 frame single, if you have your nest right here, honey over here, and honey over here, that if they move over here, you get a cold snap, they can't get back over here. But then in a 5 over 5, they're slowly moving up, eating their stores.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, when it comes to nukes, when I first started, Michael Palmer was the first person to really make the advocate of getting yourself resource hives, backup hives, and it was all about the 5 frame nuke. And when there was a guy down, and he was a beekeeper in Virginia, and he had a little club down there, and he called it the mighty nuke, and really it is. I try to tell people, I says, look, you got all these 10 framers, or, production hives. If you got, let's say if you got 5 production hives in the backyard, you should have 5 nukes.
Nuke battery.
A 1-to-1 ratio is I kind of like, or at least something close to that. At least a 60% ratio or something of that nature. And because, if you come into the springtime and you got the hive is either dead or it's got no queen, I said, no problem. You're up here in Maryland or wherever, and you don't have any, you got to buy a queen, but you're not going to buy anything right now anyway. All you got to do is walk down the line, grab that nuke, and either paper it in or whatever, or just set it in place where the dead out was or whatever, that kind of stuff. And you're done. Now, take that same nuke. And I remember I told somebody this. I got a package of bees, 3-pound package. I put it in a medium nuke, 1 box. All them bees won't fit in there. I said, well, they sure did mine. And I said, I was doing mediums. I started out with that. And, or actually I started with medium nukes because I learned real quick. I don't want deep boxes. They're too damn heavy for me at the time. That's years ago. And, so anyway, what I found with the nuke is you're always manipulating the bees to do what you want them to do for you. So if you put a package of bees on foundation and you feed that beehive with sugar water, direct feed over, on top with a quart jar or something like that, and then put a entrance reducers for guarding and all. You manipulate that hive where those bees concentrate on those 5 frames. And if you ever, I tell people, I said, look at a 10 frame hive when you put a 3-pound package in. What happens? Where are they at? I said, they're on the 5 frames, 6 frames in the middle of that box. And then I says, there's these, as I call them, lazy bees. They're out here on frame 7 and 8 and 10 out here. What are they doing for the hive as a cluster? Nothing. But if you put them in a 10 frame, they can't get away and be lazy. They all have to, converge on those 5 frames, both sides, and they'll draw that wax out perfectly. And then once they get that wax drawn out, and she'll probably start laying before they get wax half built up in there, and they get it packed pretty darn good. Then I says, put another box up on top. And I said, if you're running deeps or mediums, whatever, let's say you're running deeps, go 4 boxes tall, strap it down with a strap. But now once you get that hive established, and that, let's say that you want to put that nuke where you want that 10 frame production box is going to be, you get 4 boxes tall. Guess what? You got 20 frames already drawn out perfectly. And then you just disassemble that, put all your brood frames in the bottom box in the center, and maybe you got brood throughout. Well, then, if you got 10 frames of brood, put 5 in the bottom and 5 in the top, and put the outer frames on the outside that might have pollen in them or honey stores or something like that. And I said, it just works so much better. It's way better than just putting them in a 10 frame box.
It does. They work it quicker too. They'll build up faster in a smaller cavity.
Yeah. Congestion is a key part of that. Bees always seem to do better when there's more bees in the box. You condense them down, and a 5/5 or whatever. That is just, it's a great way to do things. I think you guys are right with that. They just seem to always be much happier.
More bees per square inch.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Mhm. And like you're saying, when you condense them and confine them, they all have to work. Don't matter.
Yeah.
If there's lazy bees in that bunch, they're all going to say, "Hey, get to work," because you're right there with them. And they'll pull that wax out, no problem at all, and all that. And I think it has to do with efficiency of heat. Especially in the wintertime or whatever, you got a cluster that you're going up and down. It's none of this, bees don't move sideways. They go up and down naturally. And you got honey up here where they're going to go straight up and straight down. And they don't move sideways. They don't have to move sideways. And it's just a natural progression for them to do all that stuff and all that. So I do, well, like right now I got a dozen nukes. I reworked my whole apiary here at the house where I used to have like 24 nukes and was trying to sell at least 20 nukes a year and stuff like that. And honey sales kept getting more. So I kept adding on more production hives. And this year I was looking at it this time last year and I'm looking at, okay, I don't have to touch these highs, production highs. Like right now, those highs right behind me, that's a current picture. I'm setting them up for winter already. I got my mite treatments in there and I haven't, I don't really need to go out there and mess with them. And I'm like, that's less work. Where the nukes, you're going to have to watch them because they might get either honeybound or they're running out of room or something like that. And I got a couple of them out there that honey nectar flow was really flowing good. And I'm like, you know what? And they were bearding really, really bad. I mean, bearding's, if it's a little bit, big deal, but if it was huge amount of beard. And I said, well, let's put a medium honey box on each of those ones that are really got a population problem. And just to kind of calm that down a little bit. And it did. So I got 2 deeps and a medium on there on some of those nukes. And then the rest of them are just 5/5. But I'm starting to see them where they're pulling all that honey in. It's after the summer solstice with, the June 21st. The days are slightly getting shorter. The queen is starting to slow down and, they're backfilling to slow her down. And, they're getting into that winter mode thought, I guess you
Hey, Charlie, you run screen or solid bottom?
screen. Everything. I got screen bottom boards on everything. That's what,
Okay.
I didn't back then. I mean, that's what everybody got was screen bottom boards. And then when winter comes along where it's 40 degrees or less all the time, I put the chloroplast in there and close them up. And then I've made up some entrance reducers where they got 3/8 by 3/8 slots where I use a dado mold, a dado head, and I put about 5 or 6 slots in the middle. So if one gets blocked up, they can get out. And thanks, Norman. And so I use that as a dual thing, a mouse guard in winter, and for robbing or whatever, kind of a dual purpose thing. And then the only other thing I do in the wintertime, now where those hives are right behind me there, the wind blows pretty strong from the back of those hives. So what I do is I find myself a carpet guy that's ripping carpet out, and I keep it from year to year. And I'll take those hives and cut some carpet, and I more or less put a wind block around them and block them. Now where my nukes are and some of those 10 framers, they're right behind a hay barn. I don't wrap them or do anything with them at all because they got a natural wind block. So I don't, nukes never got wrapped.
I got a question for Dan.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, Joey?
When you were talking about caging the queen up
Mm-hmm.
to treat,
Mm-hmm.
what time of the year were you talking about that?
I just did that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's
Look at
this
that.
year's the first year I'm testing that. But for my area to do that properly, I would have to say would be the middle of June would be the best time to do that. But the only reason I did it this year was because I had a problem with mites in those particular colonies. It was one yard that had a high load, so I caged all the queens and rendered all the colonies broodless. I want to
Okay.
see. I need 6 to 8 weeks time for them to rebuild the brood nest. I want to see if I can actually do it. You know,
Okay.
instead of dropping a formic treatment on them to knock the load down, I
So
caged them up,
and
left her on a frame, let her stay on that frame for 17 days, released her, came back 4 days later, and gassed the crap out of them with OA to kill any phoretics.
now,
Okay. So
where you located, is that in the middle of a honey flow?
No, that's the very end.
Very end. Okay.
Yeah. Like if
Uh.
I was to do it in the middle of June, I would be pretty much at the end of my flow. I'd maybe have a week or two left.
See down here, that would probably be okay here in June, maybe later. But if we got a little flow going and I tried to cage a queen up that long, in 7 days, I'm gonna have a box full of emergency cells
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. Well,
And that's what I was wondering.
if you cage her I'm using a full frame. I'm using a full frame a deep frame isolation cage. And you take the whole frame and everything and you leave her on the frame and you just drop it in the isolation cage and leave it right in the middle of the brood nest. Bees can come and go out of it. It's made out of queen excluder material.
Okay.
So she can continue laying. And on the 17th day, you pull that frame and get rid of it because you're not going to leave that brood in there.
I got
That
you.
brood is toast. I mean, that brood has got a huge mite load in it because there's nothing. That was the last frame of brood in the colony. So all the mites are congregating on that frame. So you can either pull that frame out, put it in a brood collector and an infected brood collector. That's what I did. I pulled the 3 frames out. I had 3 frames of brood. I pulled the bees and everything. I just pulled the queen out, released her, pulled the frame, bees and all, and put them all in their own box. Three frames of bees from 3 separate colonies on 3 different frames of brood, and brought them to a different place to let that infected brood hatch out, and then gave them a queen. And then when all the brood was hatched out, it's infected, so it has to get gassed. You got to gas the crap out of it because it's got a lot of mites. It's a test that I was doing this year, but I needed to
Sounds like a
render
good
those
plan.
colonies broodless.
Yeah. And like you said too, you could even just put it in the freezer and
Yeah, you can
knock
kill
back
it.
out.
Yeah, you can kill it too. I mean, the frames are pretty much a waste because half the bees that are under those capped have been fed on, so they're not going to be worth much.
Yeah.
You know, so I just didn't want to have 3 frames of dead brood to have to deal with.
Right.
So I just put them in a little crappy nuke. You know, gave them 3 frames of bees, 3 frames of brood, and just let them sit for a week, and then drop the queen in on them. Let them hatch out. Let all the brood hatch out, and then I hit them the other night with OA because there's no more capped brood. It's all hatched out. But when I pull a frame out of there, I can look at the frame and I can see mites walking around the rims of the cells. That's how bad they were.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's pretty bad.
yeah,
Wow.
it's bad. But that's those frames.
They
That's exactly what those frames were designed to do. That's the last frame out of that colony, and that was the last place mites were able to go. So you just pulled it out. You didn't leave it in there. But now those 3 colonies, the queens are starting now fresh. And then she has from now until the end of the summer to rebuild that brood nest. Hopefully, healthily,
Yeah.
I did hit them with OA as soon as they were completely broodless, which was 24. I went to 24 days. I hit them with OA and knocked down any phoretic mites.
All right.
So we'll see.
I
We'll see what
appreciate it.
happens.
I appreciate it. That's what I come on here for. I wanted to see what time of the year you did that, because if you said I missed it.
Yeah, if you
We,
do it at the right time of year,
They were talking about
you can capitalize on your honey flow.
using that same cage
Mm-hmm.
where you want to requeen a hive, right? You take your queen on that frame, put it in that cage. You wait 7 to 14 days. Everything in the hive is too old for them to make any kind of queen cells. You can pull her out, pinch her, pull her out, pinch her. Now you might wait another day or two to let that pheromone go out of the hive, but they don't have anything in there they can make a queen cell out of. Emergency queen cell, and then you can put a new queen in, so you can introduce a brand new queen. Instead of going out there pinching the queen, waiting 5 days, like I did this spring, go back out there, go through every frame, shaking bees off, and cutting cells off before I put that queen in there, which I got about a 95% acceptance rate.
Knocking those cells down sucks, though. That's a pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna back out of here.
You alleviate all that. All right,
Joey.
You alleviate all that.
Yeah, it's a smart idea. I'm gonna buy a bunch more of those cages. I need about, I don't know. I only got about, I think I got 7 of them. And I'm gonna try and incorporate this midsummer brood break method into my operation next year. So I'm gonna probably need another 30 this winter. And them things ain't cheap, man. They're like, they're like $38 a piece. Pretty expensive.
Hey, Dan, I got a question about your leaving that medium on there throughout the dearth and all. How do you, with that medium, you keep that medium on the colony? How many supers do you take off after the flow? Do you get 1 or 2 on average?
It depends. I've had colonies where I've pulled 4.
So you would have.
Go ahead.
So you would have 5 on that one, and then you would pull the 4 and leave the 1 at the bottom.
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, wow. Yeah, I would pull them all up. My winter configuration goes all the way back down to a deep medium. Like right now, everything is getting pushed back down to a deep medium. I'm not going to treat until I get back down to a deep, a deep and a half.
Yeah,
that's my configuration. And if for some reason the dearth knocks the crap out of that winter stores box, that medium, I just throw a bucket of feed right on top of it and let them fill that thing back up again.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's their box.
Yeah, I'm at a time right now with 3 kids and everything. I'm real busy. I really like how you're leaving them a medium, because I'm having to feed and spend money on sugar, and that's pretty smart. Because you put that queen excluder in the spring during the flow back underneath that medium, so you're pretty much a single brood management beekeeper. You just give them that medium for food. That's all it is.
Yeah. No reason. There's no reason to exclude her in the winter. I mean, it's the
right.
Yeah, but he's saying that she'll be up in that medium land, and then he'll find the queen, put her back downstairs.
Or you can just shake them all down and put the queen excluder, and you're good to go.
Yep, you're gonna go through that box on you. Going through mediums is real easy and usually real fast.
Yep.
You can kind of tell you come across a quick frame that's just been laid up or whatever. She's close. You know. Otherwise, if I can't, I'll shake them. I have no problem shaking them.
See, I do that the way that you manage that. I already do that in the spring, but it's a lot more work. So I'll go in and like I run all singles through the winter, and I'll put this is all fully drawn comb. I'll put a medium on probably like the first or second week in March. And then I come back 2 to 3 weeks later when she's gone up there and laid up, 4, 5, 6 frames, shake everything down, and then put my Queenish fluter. So
it's pretty much the same thing.
Same thing, but I'm having to haul boxes, and you're already set up for that,
Yeah. Yeah. It's just assigning a medium to a colony. It's just like, that's yours. You don't ever come off.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to either getting more honey or feeding more in the dirt. Really, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't have like Charlie, you starting to see any lanternflies yet?
I've seen one.
I saw a couple of them running around today.
I don't think I think the winter has killed a lot of that off.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not sure unless, they used to be 2 years ago when they first got here for us. They were like cicadas. Everywhere you looked on the ground, they were there,
right.
And you're crunching them.
Yeah.
And then last year, they were still flying into your head and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But not quite as bad.
Yeah.
They were there, but they weren't as bad the first year.
Yeah.
And then this year, I seen one or two. That's it.
I wonder what went. Well, I don't know if it went wrong, but it's not. I really didn't see many last year either.
Now, friends of mine got some of them what's it called? Heaven of trees or something like
Tree
that.
of Heaven.
Tree of Heaven.
Tree of Heaven. Yeah.
They've seen the nips, and right now they say the full adults are starting to fly.
Right.
So maybe we're in August now, so maybe we really get into next couple of weeks. Maybe we'll see more of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm curious to see what kind of August we're gonna have, because it just got so dry up here. I might wind up having to throw a bunch of feed on. I like it when I don't have to, but it is what it is.
Well, you got rain coming this weekend, don't you?
I sure as hell hope so. I mean, it just seems to go right around us all the time.
Yeah, I've been looking at the radar right now, and I just had some light rain coming through, and now there's another batch coming. It's on the other side of Baltimore. Hopefully, it'll hit us. I know we've been severely dry.
Yeah, the goldenrod needs it really bad.
Well, that's another thing. I looked at that. We were talking about that flow, and I had that staghorn sumac across the road, and there happens to be a building over there. And I went around the backside of the building where they had piled some dirt up and stuff like that. And here's a patch of goldenrod out there blooming right now. And I do know there's different types of goldenrod, and usually around here, September is when the goldenrod kind of blooms in around the farm here.
Yeah. Same here, Charlie.
So, usually it's just a pollen thing. It's not a nectar. I don't rely on any fall nectar flow whatsoever.
Yeah, me neither. If they do wind up pulling some type of nectar, and it all goes to their stores.
Well, like I say, right now, it's flowed into July, into mid-July or better, with some kind of nectar flow, and it's been kind of widespread. This nectar flow that's going on. I don't know what it is or where it's coming from, other than what I start to see, and I'm reading up on, like, say, the sumac and that kind of stuff. Some people say it was the Dutch clover, and I said I ain't got enough Dutch clover to pull that kind of nectar source in, and maybe it is the spotted lanternfly. I just haven't seen him. Who knows? So anyway, like you say, all the top boxes on all my hives are pretty much solid, full of nectar, not so much capped, but they're solid. And I'm good to go through this month of August. And then, like I say, a week or so after Labor Day, that's when I'll hit them with some 2-to-1, and I'll start mixing up 40-gallon batches. And start pumping it off.
When do
And
you
all-
do that, Charlie?
I have I got a mixing tank. You know, it's a drum. I got a honey drum, and you put 20 gallons of water in there, and I got a heater. All this stuff was given to me, you know, bits and pieces and parts, and I had it. I put it all together like a guy gave me a crab pot burner, you know, and I had a friend of mine at the time, was a welder, and he said, let me cut those tall legs off and shorten it up, you know, where it's short and stubby, but it's more, and then put little pieces of metal on there, steel bars. So when you put that 55-gallon drum on top of it, it can't slide off. And I heat my water, and then I get I put 250 pounds of sugar in there, which will equate to 40 gallons of sugar water. Now I got a 40-gallon pump on the back I got it strapped down to a pallet, which is also strapped into my back of my pickup truck. And of course, I got a forklift. That's one thing that most people don't have, or you're going to have a pump. And I pump it, or I gravity feed it over into that 40-gallon tank. And then the tank's got a little diaphragm pump on it. And I have it hooked up now to where the electric connections for like a trailer for just brake lights or trailer lights. It's like the 3 little prongs, the little 4 prongs that you fit it in there. I did the wires and stick it in there, and you turn your marker lights on like you're turning your trailer lights on. Well, now you got power to your pump. And then I go along front across, and I have top high feeders. So the pump's got a pressure switch on it, and I just quarter turn valve and pump 40 gallons off. And all, you know, I put at least a couple gallons in the 10 framers, and 3 quarts. I think it's about 3/4 of a gallon on every nuke.
But when did you say you were doing that?
I'll do it after Labor Day.
Okay.
That's when I'll do that.
I start that about a month after you. I've noticed they plug up the brood nest a little too early.
What, in October?
Yeah. I start around October 15th through the 25th for the heavier syrup. But again, that's singles. So you have 3 mediums, so they have room to put it.
Yeah. I plug up the top end and probably maybe partly the second box.
Yeah.
And then I feed them until they stop.
Yep.
And then, you know, I talked to Bill Hirschbeck up in Vermont, or where he lives up there. He talks about the condensing hive. He has a talk about that. And I talked to him over the winter at one of these one of the Maryland State conventions and meetings. And I said, you know, I see so many people trying to feed their bees throughout the winter. And I'm like, what are you doing? You know, just feed them up and get them fed and leave them alone. And then you might want to check them late February and see whether or not they're getting close to being out. And they shouldn't be out by that time if you feed them up good. That's what I've always found.
Yeah.
You know, I might have a few sugar bricks laying around just in case. But other than that, I feed them up with that pump, you know, I got all this on video. You can watch it. It's you know, it's like everything for me. It's about how to, you know, you've taken 5-gallon bucket and you're trying to pour that into a feeder. There goes all your shoulders are aching and, you know, terrible shoulder aches and stuff. And it's like, I have my hive lifter, and as people say, you know, I says, look, you know, I can pull them I got a double deep out there. It feels like 100 pounds of honey in that thing right now that they socked in there. And I thought I broke the box apart to get in there. I forget what it was for. 8 bar strips. That's what it was. And I thought it was stuck to the other frames, but it wasn't. That's how heavy it was. And I lifted it up with my hive lifter. I'm like, man, that's a ton of weight on there. I'm sure glad I got my hive lifter, because I'll definitely be going back to mediums through and through, and I ain't too sure whether I'm not going to, this year I was hurting. I lost a lot of I lost 50% of my production hives. I had queen issues because they were old. I requeened everything. I put in nukes and I expanded the honey production area because of what I wanted to do in my management plans. And so I figured, man, if I can get 500 pounds of honey, I'll be lucky because it was halfway through April when all this was going on. And I wound up with over 1,000 pounds of honey this year. I'm like, where in the world did all this come from? And it showed me that, number one, just like James and the rest of them commercial boys up north, every 2 years you get rid of them damn queens and you put new ones in.
Oh yeah, I've learned that's.
But that's something that I complain about. That all these here conferences, they'll sort of talk about queen replacement, but they don't get into it. And maybe it's me. Maybe I'm a little dense. But it's like, give me the reasoning behind this, and it's like, why every 2 years, and I'm talking to like Troy Hall up in New Hampshire on the phone. And he says, if you're down in where Lee is, Kodiak Farms and Cajun there, Brian, down in there in Mississippi and Louisiana and in deep South, they need to requeen every year. Because their queen, they don't have a winner. Lee will tell you, 2 weeks out of the year, it might get to 32 for 2 weeks. And that is it. And the rest of the time is 65 and 75 degrees. That's what they're telling me. And I'm like, you got a queen that's laying at least 11 months out of the year. Her ovaries and egg laying production area is completely wore out.
Yeah, well, they say queens lose 25% a year. So
actually, there's a woman out in Texas, some PhD. I was watching her. Actually, I was at a Maryland State meeting, listening to her about half asleep because it was boring the way she presented it. And it was too much information about everything except, if we focus it on just the queen part of her talk. So I Man Lake had her, and it's on YouTube. And she said after the first year, queens reduce in egg laying production by 40%.
Oh, 40?
40% after the first year. Now, It's because of what I know now. Now that information is like, oh, there's a nugget right there but I understand what she's talking about in relationship to what I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
And it's like, you need a speaker out there. Maybe I need to do it where it's like, hey, you need to, if you're in the mid-Atlantic area every 2 years after the second honey season, because she ain't wore out yet. But I guarantee you a lot of your hives that don't make it through the winter is because of that.
Yeah, but Charlie, the average backyard beekeeper, if someone's trying to just now get into beekeeping and you have to tell them every 2 years you have to replace that queen, they might not know how to introduce a new mated queen and not want to kill the queen that's still.
Well, they're looking at the money too.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But see, now with me, even though I don't have 50 hives, I consider myself a sideliner because I made this thing into a business where I'm selling 1,000, 1,200 pounds of honey a year. I was selling a bunch of nukes a year. And now I'm reworking my business model to where I'm going to sell. I want enough hives to do that 12 to 1,500 pounds a year and have enough nuke to replace what I need for myself and have resource hives. And I want to get after, I haven't been doing queens for the last 2 or 3 years. So I want to get back to raising my own queens and selling some queens on the side. And I'm looking at the fact that doing honey is not as much work as, when you're harvesting is the workload. But after that, you have a period where you don't have to do a lot. And nukes, I only got a dozen nukes. That's good enough for what I need to do for myself. If I need to sell a few of them to some friends, I'm probably gonna do that. And if I can harvest brood and resources for my 2-frame mating boxes, I got 30 of them. And I can also harvest brood and nurse bees to make my cell builder out of all them nukes. Instead of me trying to worry about selling them nukes before I have to go to Georgia to pick up a truckload of bees with a friend of mine. Now I don't have to do that. I can focus in on making cell builders, making this other stuff at early spring, and focus on not having them bees swarm on me either come springtime too. So, and then I do all my honey hives more of a Demaree thing. I mean, how do you do it, Don, as far as you're doing a single brood chamber?
Mhm.
How do you keep them from swarming?
Well, if I'm not splitting them, I'm a big fan of letting them naturally requeen. As soon as I start seeing them drop cells, I'll pull the queen and make a split. Other than that, I will Demaree. I Demaree quite a few times this year, and it's the same deal. You're just moving the brood.
Yeah.
It's whatever way you want to call it. You're trying to effectively achieve the same thing. You're trying to separate the brood and nurse bees from the queen and the workforce. That's the Demaree theory. So as long as you're achieving that objective, you're going to have success. So if you're doing it with a
Well,
deep and a medium, it doesn't much matter. You're separating the two and giving that queen a full box to lay in and leaving her with the workforce and separating the brood and nurse bees far enough away by, 2, 3 supers. And it does work every year.
now when you
Every
do
time I've used
your
it.
ring, do you take and put her down in the bottom with a
Yes.
couple frames of brood, and then everything else is completely empty?
One
Or
frame of brood. One
one,
frame of brood. I'll find her in the frame she's on, and that's going to go down in the bottom box, and she'll get 9 drawn combs to have her way. So you got that one frame, her on it, the brood that's on it, and she's going to get all the workforce because they're the ones that are going to be coming and going right out the front door. All the brood and nurse bees are going to go up way the hell above 2 or 3 supers, empty supers.
well, then you got
And
to go
those are,
back about 4 days later and start shaking bees and cutting cells,
well,
or utilize them.
yeah, I go about 9 days. I wait until they're well established so they're easy to find. And yeah, you got to shake every frame because man,
And I see the way I did it the last couple of years, and I might have to try it that way, is where I'll go through the bottom box and I will pull out all the cat brood.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll put put all the cat brood upstairs, put all the
Mhm.
empties downstairs.
Yeah.
And then normally there's not any queen cells on them, very few to none. And I cycle it up and down. But that's the problem. I think your way, you don't have to get into that bottom box as often.
Not for a while. Once
For a month
you do it, the only box you're getting into is the top. If you have if you have their medium up there with the box that you had, usually I'm not when I make my change in the spring, when I force the queen downstairs, usually by the time I start seeing the swarm impulse kicking in, their stores box has hatched out and emerged. So I'm making my Demaree with basically deep frames.
Right.
I'm not dealing too much with having to move the stores box other than where it's sitting. So, and I'm only after I perform the Demaree, I'm not going back down in the bottom box for a couple of weeks. I'm just going into that top box 9 days later, 9, 10 days later, shaking the bees, knocking the cells down, and that's that. I mean, I've screwed it up a couple
or
times.
using that or harvesting
Or
the cells,
harvesting that. Yes, you can
and you can
actually take.
make your queens that way too.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that, or you can leave that top box and just put a notched a shim underneath it, and just leave a couple cells up there and let them raise their own queen right out of that top box. Just make sure the notch is in the back of the box. Make sure its notch is facing the
Yeah.
back of the hive, and just let them
Well,
raise a
that was
queen.
the only problem I found this year, was that sometimes they didn't have the time to get out there.
Yeah.
And they would hatch that brood out, and then they would backfill it with nectar. Well, I don't want it backfilled. I want it open so I can put it back downstairs and bring more up, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I want them to get to that point where they just start backfilling that top box full and let them go to town. And even though it was a brood box, and all those frames were brood, doesn't matter to me. When they're capped, they're capped. I'll still spin them out.
Mhm.
You know.
But I find the Demaree, everybody, it's a certain amount of work to it, but you can increase your honey production. You
Oh,
can,
yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, completely eliminate any swarming. As
Yeah.
far as I'm certain.
If you have the time,
And,
yeah.
huh?
I say if you have the time, yeah.
Yeah. Boy, I tell you, I tried doing snell groving a few times. You ever tried that? Boy.
With the little thing, that is the most confusing thing I think I've tried to listen to people talk about that,
It works,
and
but it's very labor
I
intensive.
haven't figured out how to do that. Now, Strut and Buck, it says try the vertical Demaree, and I don't know what the vertical the vertical Demaree, that's up and down.
Yeah, it's a vertical split basically. You're just
Yeah,
keeping all your workforce home. That's the
Yeah.
important part.
yeah, that's what
See-
I've been doing for last couple of years.
It's a good way to get a good honey harvest. I'll tell you that. You do
Well, that's
it
what
right.
I'm looking at. I mean, I had a dozen hives out there, and I averaged 80 pounds per hive
Yeah.
last year before, which normally around for me is 50 pounds, if that,
Yeah.
on average, depending on the flow. And and all that, but and all. So
I average about two boxes. So that's about what I average. Two
two
boxes of hive.
mediums, two
Yeah,
medium.
2 mediums, and if I Demaree, it's going to be a deep and a medium, and then later on I'll wind up pulling that extra medium off of there. It'll only be half full. I'll have to dry it down. But yeah, the Demarees, when you got a full deep, and a full medium. Last year I pulled one full deep off, and I put the box on the scale, and the box was 86 pounds. So, and let me tell you something, they're a bear to get off of a Demaree because they're so high.
Right.
I don't have a hive lifter, so I'm like standing up on a cinder block, tipping that bitch up on its side, and then saying, a little prayer and a 1, 2, and 3, and tip it off.
Yeah, that's like I say. That's like I say. I can't. That's why I started out with deeps, and I tried to pull that top deep off. When it was full of honey. In the fall, or like this time of year. Inspect. I'm like, this ain't happening anymore. And that's been years ago.
Yeah.
And that's when I started going towards mediums. And
A
all
full
that.
deep is a love-hate relationship. You're really, really happy you got a full deep, because that's almost a full pail of honey right there. But the hate part is trying to manage it, get it off the hive. Like you said, when you're trying to do an inspection or whatever, it's a real pain in the butt.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Charlie and Dan, I'm gonna get out of here. I'll be in the chat, Charlie.
All right. Well, you don't need to run off.
I'll be in the chat. I got to go in and see the wife.
Oh, okay. Got to keep her happy.
Right. All right, guys.
See ya.
All right.
See ya.
Yeah. Now, Strut and Buck he says he's using a double screen board, but I'm not quite sure how you're going to use that in that
Mm.
situation. You don't want to break. You don't want to cut the
No,
bottom box off. You want
no.
that honey flow to keep coming up. And that was
Maybe put a
another thing.
split.
Now you're talking about putting honey supers on. Do you find I did some experimenting this year and I said, okay, I always thought logically that if you under super, it would be better. And I under supered so many of them and I over supered so many of them. And I found that the bees will fill the top box first.
I agree 100%.
And it's like all the commercial guys, of course, they all say, you know, we're not going to lift up all this stuff to stick another box under.
Mm.
Where I found that they filled the, you know, and then I read articles where they said it didn't really matter either way.
Yeah.
And I found that it seemed like the bees did better about putting a empty on top. They want to fill the top box first, and they're working down
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's Jack coming in. Here comes Jack.
Jack, you're all sweaty.
All right, I'm just
Don't
gonna
tell
mess
me
with
the
my.
AC quit again.
Well, Jack, I know Jack, you're up there in New Jersey. Are you close to? Is it John? Is it
Dan,
Dan?
Yeah, I'm close. I'm close to Dan. I'm trying to figure out why my speakers are not working that loud. But-
Charlie, it's Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
It's DNN, meaning Dan and Nisa. That's my wife.
Okay. Well, see, I have.
It's kind of funny because it looks like it kind of the DNN makes it look weird, like a spelled Dan in a different way.
No, I keep a track of everybody who comes in and.
Jack, your AC quit again or no?
Huh?
No, I'm talking to Jack. Did your AC quit again?
What's that?
Did your AC quit again?
No, it's working now. Oh, you talking about this?
Yeah. Hey,
I
Brad.
hear.
You know what? I'm gonna hang up and I'm gonna get my laptop out because this ain't working too well. I'll be back in a few minutes.
All right. Hey, Brian. Brad.
Oh,
How's things down? You know, I seen you there. You found what you. I was watching your video today, and
Wait,
you got
hold
land.
on 1 second.
All right.
Okay, now I had forgot to mute the other.
Oh, the YouTube.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, because you're feeding back or whatever.
I heard you speak.
I watched
twice.
your video there, and you had all those drone cells in that one frame.
Yeah, it was a man. I had already pulled 2 supers off that hive, and I still had 2 supers on it, and so I was gonna start using those honey boxes to, like I told you last time, adding honey to my weaker hives.
Mhm.
And when I got into that thing, when I pulled one of the supers up at the bottom of the super, I seen a little queen cell. I said, "Oh," I said, they might be trying to swarm because there was a lot of bees in the box." But when I got in there and found that drone brood, I said, "Uh-oh." And I couldn't find her nowhere. So I think they had already killed her because I found 2 super seizure cells in the middle of a frame. So I went ahead and got rid of those little cells that were on the drone brood because I was afraid that was just maybe some male brood they was trying to make a queen out of. And I left the 2 super seizure cells, and I'm gonna see what that pans out to be. If I see some big old bug eyes come out of there, then I'll just kill it. Because she still had a few brood on there that was regular brood, but not very many. She was like 80% drone layer.
Right.
I
So
want
what's
to ask-
happening, Jack? What's up? I seen your video up there where you had your hives out in the pumpkin patch or watermelon patch, I guess it was.
Yeah. It was in watermelons. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah, you're a little bit low.
All right. I don't know how to.
There you go.
Okay. All right, good. Maybe I was too far away. Yeah. Like I'm on a kind of a unique situation right up here where we are because I'm on a farm. Where they're doing their apples. In March and April. Then they move to strawberries, and then there's a little bit of break in between. Then it goes to the melons. Cantaloupe and watermelons, and then it goes right into pumpkins. So I got a little bit of help from the farmer with nectar flow,
Uh,
but it's getting about the time. It's probably the next 2 or 3 weeks. I'm gonna have to put pollen traps on because the amount of pollen that comes from the pumpkins and
I
the squash is really it's overwhelming. They'll plug out the whole entire brood nest. But what I wanted to jump on and say something real quick and follow what Dan was saying with when you guys Demaree and stuff like that and you're knocking down cells, I use those cells, I open them up and I collect the royal jelly and I save it. And that's what I prime my cells with when I graft,
right.
and it works really, really well.
So now, what tool do you use to grab? A German tool?
You know what? I just ordered a bunch of the Chinese ones, the bamboo, because I got
Yep.
the nice plastic ones, but I think I'm gonna go back and try the wooden, the bamboo ones again, and see. And I turn the frames upside down when I graft because it seems like it's easier to scoop them out. To scoop the larva out when the frame is upside down. It's inverted.
Now I got Chinese grafting tools, which is usually a nice plastic pencil-looking thing with a plunger on the back,
Yes. Yep.
and
Same
it's
thing.
got a plastic scooter off tongue, but the reed is, I don't know, elk horn or whatever you want to call it,
Turtle,
and
turtle shell.
turtle shell, is that what it is? I don't know. I got turtle shell guitar picks.
I went back. I'm gonna try the wooden ones next year, or the bamboo because I think they might hold the moisture a little bit longer. Because everybody puts them in their mouths. In between, and yeah, maybe it's not as sanitary, but
Rick there, he likes the German grafting tool and all.
that metal one that
Yeah.
it's got the little hook on it that you
Yeah.
plunge it like this.
No, I
I
don't have
thought-
no. That's he's thinking of it's like it looks like a dental tool. It's like
Oh,
a dental,
yeah.
and you
Yeah.
you pick it up, and then that's where you prime that cup, and then lay it off in there, and that's
Okay.
And all. Now, when I go down to Hardeman's down in Georgia, they'll take a piece of copper wire, and they'll sit there and ping that thing out and make like a little spoon, you might say. Each person has their own. You don't mess with it. And believe me, and of course they're doing, I don't know, a couple thousand grafts every day, 7 days a week down there. Two of them, him and Mickey and one of the girls, and they're just. I mean, it's like this,
Yeah.
constant, and it's like, man, I mean, how do you get that fast? But they do.
You've seen those
And
videos.
huh?
You've seen those videos where they're like mostly in Indonesia and stuff like that, where they're collecting royal jelly. They're like bing, 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 like right down the line. I'm like, holy crap!
Well,
Charlie,
what they do down there in Georgia is that actually when they go down with that straight scoop, as I call it, like it's kind of like a German tool. They actually break the sidewall of the cup and all, and do it that way. It's quite interesting and all, but they fly putting those cells in there. And then the thing what they do is they go like they do, like you said, you take those cells, those cap queen cells, and or ones that got royal jelly in there, and they'll take 2 or 3 of them and break them open. They'll scoop out the royal jelly, and they got a little bottle there. Put
Yep.
that royal jelly in there, and then they put a little bit of water in there and mix it up, kind of a little bit thicker than milk. And they got a little piece of wood, is like about the size of a pencil on the end, and they dip in over here, and then they dip, then they hit that JZBZ cup, and it puts a
Oh,
drop
that's
every time they go back and forth. Every one of them gets a dip, and then it hits the
So that's
JZBZ
how they're
cup,
priming the cells.
and they're priming the cell that
Yeah.
way with that little droplet in there, and that's how they prime.
How
Yep.
did you do it, Jack?
What's that, Dan?
How did you do it? Did you do
I
it that
use
way, or did
No, I'm using the grafting tool.
you
To
just put a little
How do you
dab in the
prime your
bottom?
cell?
That's what I'm doing. I'm using the grafting tool to prime the cell too. So
Okay.
I'll just scoop it out. And I want to show you real quick. 1 second.
Charlie, how do you feel about Gardner queens versus Hardeman
So
queens?
I got this is royal jelly.
Mhm.
Is what I collected, and this is it's like a blood pressure thing. The test strips come in here. You can order from Amazon. And this is a tube I use. And this is from a little bit from this year and some from last year. It doesn't go bad,
Yeah.
but it helped. I mean, I was 50 out of 55 success on
That's good.
grafting.
You're in 90 percentile. That's
And I primed every cell. The ones that missed, I think they were upside down or they flipped, and they drowned, something like that. But I kind of knew which ones were bad, because my eyes are getting bad too.
yeah. I use a pair of magnification unit.
Those ones that flip down and
I
Yep.
use these glasses, which are the bottom part of my bifocals, basically, and then I put the magnification over top of this. I think it's a 1.5 or something like that, and it works fine with me. I can see.
yeah.
But yeah, my biggest thing is setting the cell builder up properly, getting the right amount of bees in there.
You know what I did this year, Charlie, is I didn't do a starter finisher. I did a starter and left them in there. I saw Bob Bimini do that, and I'm like, wait a minute, that might really work. And I tested it, and it does.
Mhm.
But
pop-
I think it was because I primed the cells.
Right. We had a question here about Hardman. I don't know whether it was Rick was asking that or not.
Oh, that was me.
Oh, was that you about
Yeah.
about Hardmans versus Gardeners?
Yeah.
Rick's saying the springtime everything is great, and
I have my own opinions about that.
That's why I
now the
know
big
I know your
thing.
story,
I
Jack.
talked to a friend of mine that's been kind of been in the business per se. Not so much as a queen, like not like Rick here, but he's like a member of the American Honey Producers Association and stuff like that. And he talks about this time of year when you're getting queens this time of year where they've been banked for so
Yep.
long. And I forget where I was hearing this. There was a guy I know up in Pennsylvania there, and I don't know whether he read this or whether it's experience or not, and maybe Rick can clarify that, is that once that queen, let's say you graft a queen, she comes back mated, and she's laying for, let's say, 3 to 4 weeks. Once she's laying for 3 to 4 weeks, then you can bank her and it won't
Yeah.
affect her ovaries. Now, I've always heard that if you bank her no more than about, you might, it's okay for about a week or so, but after that, her ovaries and everything start to shrivel up and you know mess up, where sometimes if you release her to get her into a new hive, that'll all kind of come back, but then sometimes it doesn't come back.
What
So
happens
I
during
don't
the
know.
wintertime?
Huh?
What happens during the wintertime when she stops laying for a solid month or two,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't know. I'm just saying. I don't know. You might be onto something, Charlie. I don't know, but I'm just thinking.
Yeah, but you're banking
loud.
them where they can't do anything.
Yeah,
You know, they're in a cage
yeah,
and that kind of a thing where they might be, they're going to get fed hopefully by the nurse bees in that bank. But I think I don't know whether a queen really shuts down completely or not, because I've looked in my hives in
Yeah.
February on one of them days that's pretty darn
Yeah.
warm, and I had a patch of brood, let's say 2 inches in diameter. And I'm like, really? In February, so
I don't know if they can hold
yeah,
them
but
back.
I agree with you there. Rick says he doesn't really like to bank queens, and I agree with Rick 100%.
No.
I
And
don't
that
think
was
it's any
another
good.
thing the guy was telling me. He said, I like to go and I'll raise queens and get the cells. I'll take them in a cell builder. And after, once they're capped after 6 days, the way I count it, then I take them cells and I put them in an incubator. And
Yep.
and I used to take the cells and leave them in there a certain amount of time, about a day and a half before they're going to hatch, and then put them in a 2-frame mating box. And then tinkeritis would set in on me, and I want to go in there and look around. Well, where's she at? Did she make it out of the cell? And that's not the good thing to do.
No.
And so I said, you know what? I'll fix that problem. I'll put a hair roller cage on there and let them hatch out into that in the incubator. And then if
Yep.
I see them in the middle of the day or something like that, and I got a little time on my hands, I'll take them right out there. I'll have all those, 2-framers set up, ready to go. And anymore, I just let her walk on in, open up the feed hole, where the little jar is for my sugar water or whatever, or some Pro Sweet, and then let her walk on in there, And the other guy was talking about he didn't have much success rate on that. I said, well, I put him in there, and at that point in time, I know there's a queen in there, and it's a virgin in there.
Yeah.
And now leave her alone for 2 weeks, and then come back, and then she should be laying.
Yep.
And where if I put a cell in there, I'm wondering was the cell a dud,
Yeah.
or did she, get out, or did they kill her?
That's what I would. Yeah. Was it a waste? Did she even hatch? Or when you release her there, and I know Dan knows this too, is spray them with sugar. A spray bottle. As soon as I let her out of the cage onto the frame, I spray her right down with sugar water.
I see. Now there's
Spray 'em all.
interesting.
Spray the whole frame.
There's an
Spray all
interesting
the
comment there from Rick. If you go to South Florida, they
Whoa.
never shut down. But if you go to North Florida, which I would think if it's anywhere in Florida, they would never shut down as hot as it is down that way. And they'll shut down for a few months, which is, I find that quite interesting. I figured they would. If you're in Florida, they'd never shut down, but obviously not, and all that. Now, Rick, he has a base of operation in Florida, and then he has I think it's his home base, I'll call it, up in Kentucky there, and all that. And
Gentlemen, I got a haul. I got to get out of here.
all right,
Bless you.
Thank you.
Bless you, Jack.
Thanks, Dan.
I'll talk to you later on, Jack. I'll talk to you probably tomorrow.
Yep. See you later, Dan.
Good talking to you, Charlie.
all right, yeah. Stop on back. We're here every Friday night,
All right.
and sometimes the instepper stops by, or some of the other folks up in, right now, everybody up in Canada right now is right in the middle of their honey flow, so they're busy.
Yeah.
busy.
Yeah.
So they're not
Balls to the walls for them.
going to be in here.
Yeah,
All right.
See
Charlie.
you later.
I was on. Was it Tuesday when?
Later.
When?
See ya.
What night does Brad? I mean, not Brad. Bob. Bob has his channel on, right?
Yeah.
And you were saying about how important it is to raise your own queens, to have locally adaptive queens,
Yeah.
where they know where the nectar source is, and they know if they get sick, they know what flower to go get to get healed. I didn't participate, but I was watching, and I agree with you 1000%.
Well, part of that information I was talking about was some of can't remember the science guy, but he's down in Georgia, and they were experimenting on some kind of science experiment, and they were talking about where they were raising queens well, having bees in general, and that those hives, if they're sick, you might say they knew where to go and get a herbalistic cure
Yeah,
somewhere from some plant that's in their area. And let's say they have a stomach ache. Well, they need to go over here on this plant and get some of that pollen, and it takes away the stomach ache.
yeah,
And this is just loose terms. And they were doing this experiment down there about that, and they said if you take that hive or bees or the queen or whatever, let's say you take a package out of that and you ship it 400 miles up the road and put it in a hive there, well, they got to relearn what's available to them in that new location
yeah.
and
Yep.
everything, and that kind of stuff, and all that. So uh that's I say that if wherever you raise your queens, if you're raising them from bees from the area that you've been living in, they
It's
have
gonna,
the genetics, and they have that information, I'm going to say, in them when they hatch, that
yeah.
they know where in their area to find uh different places and stuff.
I have being in Jersey where it's still cold in March, and I need to start building up quick, and we can't get queens in the spring. I've bought queens from that big distributor down south. I'm not going to say any names, but they're a big queen distributor, and they work, but they die. They peter out, and they ended up getting superseded or replaced. But
Well, I mean, I had to have queens this year, and I had to have about I bought nukes and I bought queens, and that was from Kuduk's out of South Carolina, right close to Bob's house.
yeah,
And they turned out to be just fine. I mean, they really did. They worked hard for me this year, and they got me a crop of honey that I didn't even think I was going to even come close to.
yeah, you did
And
well. That's great.
I did well. I had over 1,000 pounds of honey, and I'm talking, I was late in the season, and I don't know. And them hives out there right now, they are booming with bees. Them girls are really, kicking butt when it comes to laying eggs. And hey, Steve, and he's down in the Caribbean.
Nice.
He he's up there in this up there. He's up there in New York, where it's cold all the time.
Oh, is that the Buffalo by Buffalo? That guy.
No, he's up farther, on up a lot higher,
Oh
up
wow,
in New York State.
like Vermont.
I mean, Steve, me and Steve, we met Steve down at the hotel or the motel, I guess hotel down in Tennessee when I was going down to Hive Life the last couple of years. Hey, Brad,
Hey, good night, Brad.
he's coming in.
Or-
Good evening.
oh, he's coming in.
Evening.
Hey,
Hey.
so Charlie,
It's,
you know,
it's thundering outside. Yay! It's raining. We need.
a couple times you guys have talked about Palmer queens, right? And there was some discussions about them.
Michael Palmer queens.
Michael Palmer queens, yeah. So I have a little experience with them for 2 years.
I don't
2
have
years
any
in a row.
Yeah.
I bought virgins from the Virginia, the Virginia beekeepers, something down there, and they work out very well. And they're frugal. They build up slow, but once they kick in, oh man, she turns it on right at exactly the right time in my area. When you need brood, they don't go through their stores in the wintertime. So right now I got a couple hives. I think I got about 5 of them out there, production colonies with Michael Palmer queens. And I got the version, so they mated with my drones, so they're locally adapted. I have carpet brood right now, and we're in the middle of a dearth, and there's like 6 or 7 frames of wall to wall carpet. So I like them. Me myself, I really like those genetics.
Well, now, back to your video, I was seeing where you had the hives, you had put them out on pallets, and you're out there in the watermelon patches.
Yep.
And how are you moving them things? Do you have a hive lifter on a truck or something, or what?
And right after the spring. All right. So when the apples are over and the strawberries begin, I got to move them from the apples into the strawberries. They're too heavy for me to lift. So I get the farmer to bring his front end loader. Yep. He picks them up with a front end loader because they're probably over 200 pounds, two double deeps, on a pallet. I can't lift them. But when I harvest the honey and they're down to 1.5s again, a deep and a medium, it's called a 1.5.
Yeah.
I use a hand truck with extended forks on it. And there was somebody on here, I think, that came up with that. Who was it? Bob Bimney's, the guy that was Seth.
Oh, you're talking about Seth, yeah.
So I use a hand truck like Seth has.
Okay. I was just going to comment on Steve. You say you're not going to go to Nobby this year. What are you going to do? Be partying all night long so you can't, have a hangover for a couple of days? I know. And people talk about that. I don't know. Me, New
It's
Year's
because of
Eve,
the New Year, right?
New Year's Eve or New Year's Day Eve, whatever. It's not a big thing for me. It's just another day.
Yeah.
Unless there's a bluegrass dance or something out there that I'll go to where we bring
it's like amateur night. It's you don't want to be going out on New Year's Eve.
Rick's going to do some Brazilian pepper. I've heard about
Tom. Tom's going to bed. Good night, Tom.
All right, Tom. We'll catch you later, brother. Trying to make him some Brazilian pepper, and I think I've heard Bob Benny talk about that when he was going down there. Rick is, i.e., when it says Brazilian pepper, is it sort of a hot honey or have a peppery taste to it, or is it just another honey that has what would you say, a different flavor about it?
Oh yeah, like a hot honey.
Yeah, well, Brazilian pepper. I've heard about that down in where Bob Benny when he was doing a lot of moving hot, that he would go down there and his bees would grab some of that stuff. Oh, Steve says his grandson's 8 years old. Okay. On January 1.
Oh, okay. So it's not a party night.
Not a party night. No, it's a birthday night. So 38C. Let me see. That's Doug up there in Saskatchewan. Let's see. 38C. That's 100 degrees.
Ooh.
Up there. That's how hot it was up in Saskatchewan today.
Man.
That's pretty darn hot.
That's not normal.
That's Canada.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, he's he's in the Midwest, where Manitoba's north of North Dakota. And I think Saskatchewan is off to the right.
Yeah.
More east and all that.
Charlie, I exceeded my honey harvest this year too. I think I broke 1,000 pounds also. I think.
Well, I've been last year. I did 11. I sold 1,100 pounds last year, and which was more than which was a good year for me.
Yeah.
And and I don't go out to any what do you call them, farmers markets or anything like that. I just sell it right here.
Nice.
And here it comes. There's Rick's answer. Sweet taste honey. The only problem is with
Yeah, Malaluka balloons.
blooms, I guess. That make it better. Okay, that's cool.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, like I say, that was my decision last year where I had a beekeeper just north of me, or just a quarter of a mile up the road or so, maybe a half at the most. He went out of business, and he'd been pointing everybody to me, and sales went up. And I'm like, hey, I can give me your money. Here's the honey, and see you later. Whereas when I was doing nuke sales, I sold bees to one person, then I get a call a half hour later. Well, will they be okay in this cardboard box and stuff like that? And
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like I've had enough of that after so many years of that. And so I said, I'd much rather I was raising queens about 3 years ago and doing pretty good with that. I started out with cells. Then I said, okay, I'll sell you virgins, or I'll sell you mated queens. And then you still had the same problem there in a certain way that, hey, um, they didn't understand that, hey, you're going to put this mated queen in today, as in right now, as soon as you
Yes.
get home. And they, I'll put that in tomorrow. I says, no, you won't. This is
No.
when I had cells, I said, it's going to stay right here,
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. This is the first year I really had a lot of success with grafting, and I do the incubator too. And then all of a sudden, around it was like like 3 days in total before they all hatched. But it was pretty cool, So I'll go to sleep. I wake up the next morning, 5 of them hatched.
Mm-hmm.
An hour later, 4 more hatch. And then come home from work, there's 10 more. And it seems like that they like to go back up into the cell. I don't know what the draw is to that, but
Oh yeah, I mean, that's another thing. I when they're in the incubator in the house here, of course, I'm here all day. I'll check them in the morning. I'll check them at lunchtime.
yeah,
Or if I have a little bit of time in between, let's say at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, I'll come in and check them. And you're right, they'll go up into that cocoon and they'll get stuck.
they'll go right back up. Yep.
They're going up there because if you raise them good enough, there's always a little bit of extra jelly. That was like when Mike Palmer talked about. You want more jelly in there than they need to get through that reproduction cycle.
Yes.
Now, Mike, I presume it's Big Mike here. Mike is going to go up and work with Mike, because he had talked about that, going up there and helping Mike out. Mike's got some health issues or something. I forget what it was now. Maybe a broken arm or something of that nature.
What is it set up at St. Albans, Vermont, meeting up with Michael Palmer in the morning? Oh, that's great. That's good experience. I'm jealous. And they have that girl.
This is interesting. Rick's. You can make which is basically tea tree oil. It comes from Australia. Okay, that ought to be an odd tasting. Well, it'd be like Manuka honey.
That girl Chuckabee down in Florida. She goes up to New York in the winter time, I believe, and works with Michael Palmer.
In the summertime. That'd be what is her name?
Chuckabee. I don't know her.
Yeah, it's a girl. I forget. She's been working up there with him, but then she started her own gig down in Florida and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think she was too busy to make it up there this year, and
Yeah.
maybe last year too. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. The Canadian guys, man, they're in it right now.
Yeah, well, Shane, he's up in Canada, and I seen Doug, he's in here. He put out a video where they're taking a set of fume boards and stuff like that. They just take a leaf blower and blow all the damn bees out of the supers and and put them on the truck. He's got a hive lifter like Ian's got. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
different.
gotta
It's
be
not
really
an
good.
easy loader. It's something different and all that. And then he also has a 60 frame cow and extraction line
Wow.
and all that. And it was, it does quite well. And, they do that and sell the honey bulk, I think, to the,
Yeah, I saw Mr. Ed's operation, down there with their easy lifter, and it's like the same thing like Ian's got, and that's got to really save your back. And
who's this? You mean Mr. Ed?
Mr. Ed, Mr.
Yeah.
Ed, the Louisiana, he's down by Bruce,
Right.
and, yeah, was it Mr. Ed and Charlie?
Yes,
Good Time Charlie.
Good Time Charlie and all that. Well, they got a chain uncapper. They've got a Dakota chain uncapper, and they got a 60 frame, I think, radio extractor.
Yeah.
And well, I was watching one of their videos, and what was kind of interesting, I figured it was Big Mike. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Big Mike was on here a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about going up there and helping out Mike and all that. And he's got about, I don't know, 175 hives, something like that.
Ooh.
He's doing, working that by himself.
I think I did a count, and I think I got 35, and that keeps me busy.
Well, that's what I used to have up until this year, and I backed it off a little bit. I'd like to say restructuring.
Yeah.
Where,
I think I got 35 in 3 different yards. So, and I got all my resource hives outside at home, and I keep those bees close because they grow way too fast.
Norman, how's the sawmill growing? We're super slow in work. We don't have a whole lot of work. We got some logs came in today, some custom stuff that we've been sawing for another customer. I got one order. The guy wanted for I'll say for pool construction, some lumber, and I need trying to get a hold of him to get a deposit so we could start on that. And that's the only stuff we got right now. And things are pretty darn slow. Everybody's talking about it. And then of course, like I say, right now, it's raining out there. I am so happy to hear that rain outside the house right now. It is lightning a little bit, but this is the first good rain where it's raining continuously for months. We've gotten 15-minute downpours, but this one here is really doing well for us. And I hope it stays out there for the next couple hours, as far as till tomorrow morning, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I hope it comes right to me after it's done with you, Charlie.
Norman says he's got a neighbor that has a sawmill also, got a brand new mill. I presume that's the way I read it. But yeah, that's how business is right now. My son, he's farming all this ground behind us here around the hives and all back up in there with hay. And second cutting, you can see right now how brown it is. It should be lush green. And because of no rain. And Norman wants, let's see, educate me about roll jelly. No idea what it is. Okay. Roll jelly is what they feed the larvae in the cell. If you look down in there and you see a small larvae, but it's laying in a pool of, it kind of looks like snot.
Yeah.
That's
What?
roll jelly.
White.
And it's white. And they'll feed that larvae, what is it, the first 3 days of its life, I think it is.
Yep. Yes.
And then after that, the bees will feed that worker bee bee bread, which is a combination of roll jelly and pollen. And that bee will grow up as a worker bee, but her ovaries won't develop. So that's why they don't lay any eggs. But if it's a queen and a queen cell, they will feed that queen roll jelly 100% of its life, and that genetically turns on her ovaries and makes them fully developed so she can lay drones and worker bees.
Yeah. And I do that every year, Charlie. I collect as much royal jelly as I can. If I got a bunch of queen cells and they got to be capped, or well, almost capped.
Mhm.
And I take one of those Chinese scoopers. It's like a fat little spatula that they use in royal jelly harvesting, and it all comes out in one scoop and collect it. And it's a very easy way to get that stuff for free because it's
Right.
expensive.
Yeah, I mean, and how uh let's see what Rick says here. Good night, guys. I am at the house now. I'm going to have my late supper. All right, Rick. Hey, Rick, come on back. We're here every Friday night from 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Glad to have you in on the live part of it here if you like. I'd love to ask you more questions about how to set up a cell builder like you had showed down at Hive Life Conference. And like I say, wintertime, we have a little bit more of the commercial guys coming in. So, but we're always good to hear from everybody. So thank you very much.
Yeah. And as to Richard out there, his comment, yeah, and every now and then I'll take a scoop for myself. That royal jelly tastes.
I never really tried that. Doesn't.
It's a little sweet and sour, but it's delicious.
Darren, you can buy royal jelly, but you know something is there's always been a discrepancy, especially when it comes from China. Well, how much of it is really royal jelly? I mean, it takes a lot of cells in order to produce any quantity. I mean, that Jack's little vial there, how many cells did it take to fill that thing up?
Not many, because they were
Really?
full. But they were the cells that I took this and to fill this container of, they were full. So maybe 10. And you get one frame with 5 cells on it, you're halfway there.
Well, see, I don't prime my cells because I use a Chinese grafting tool. And the idea behind that is you have the larvae laying on top of rolled jelly. And
Yeah.
your idea is to go underneath and scoop up the larvae that happens to have, not the larvae, the rolled jelly that happens to have the larvae on it. And then you just scoot that back off into the JZBZ cup.
Yes.
And as long as you don't damage the larvae or flip it or whatever, you should be fine.
Yep. And the only reason why I primed them is just for insurance, in case I have some weak, nurse bees, or my cell builder is not strong enough. And,
Yes.
like, why not? but I'm not a commercial guy either. You know, if I can do, if I can get 20 return, that's more than I need by a lot.
$100 a pound for bee bread.
Wow.
I don't even know where you buy that at.
No.
But anyway,
It's
like I
all right.
say, going to get back into raising queens. I think I find that to be quite fun. And
Yeah.
Dr. Leo, no wonder.
Uh,
Yeah, Dr. Leo. He's a doctorate of forestry. Has nothing to do with bees whatsoever in his doctorate's degree. If you don't believe me, just go to his website. It's right there on his website.
yeah.
But but anyway, I find raising queens to be it's like growing a garden. You know, you
It is.
plant the plant, and let's say it's a tomato plant or whatever, you know, and then you got this nice looking ripe tomato, and you're proud of the fact that you grew that, you know,
Yeah.
and all that, and so it's like
it's really
you're
not
proud
that
of,
hard.
you know, you look at that queen. My problem is a lot of times I'll have a really beaut of a queen there, and I'm like, I don't know if I could sell her. She looks awful good, you know,
Yeah.
you know, and all that kind of stuff.
And it's funny the way that the daughters, some of them are like, all right, so they're all the eggs are from one mother, right? But the
Mhm.
daughters, depending on the drone's genetics, some of them
Mhm.
are dark bees, some of them are light bees, and you get like a mix in between. And it's I don't know. I just think it's really cool. It's so easy to do, and if it doesn't work, who cares? You didn't lose anything.
Well, you know, that's the biggest thing when I first started, you know, oh, you should have so many years of beekeeping experience before you do any kind of queen rearing. And I'm like, I went down to Knoxville to the honey show down there. There was one of the first bigger conventions in the, you know, and it was something different for us to do. And what's his name, out of Kentucky? He's a queen breeder. Um, can't think of his name right now. He was at also Hive Life, but anyway, um, he I went down there to that class. It was a live class where they brought in, you know, bees right out of hive or eggs. You know, now some of it wasn't the right age, but it was relatively close.
Yeah, and
And
it was a
and
demonstration.
you know, and it was like we all lined up at two different stations, and we would graft so many of them, and then the next person would take a turn. And uh, it was like 5 minutes went, you know, in five or 6 minutes, I was grafting, and I said, "Is this all? Is there all to it?" And
Yeah,
then Kent Williams is who the guy was, and I says, "Is this all there is to it?" And he said, "Yeah, that's it." I said, "Well,
yeah,
what's the big, you know, what the big deal, you know?" And then he showed me some stuff like if you have a Chinese grafting tool, you should take your thumb, and this is the grafting tool. Bring that reed down and hit your thumbnail. If that reed bends real nice and easy, it's just right as far as the thinness and the flexibility. If it
yes,
goes down there and it won't bend, then you need to sand that reed down to where it will flex across your nail,
yeah,
and it makes a world of difference when it comes to being good about picking up the jelly along with the larvae and stuff like that.
yeah. And as long as you don't flip it over when you're putting it inside the cup, then you're okay. I mean, that might be
And now he
the
tried to tell us about how to kind of judge the age, you know. And he was talking about go in there and look at the eggs and then come back in so many days. Well, I tried that when I got back home. And you think it's day one, but it might be day two. By the time you get back and you think it's day three, it's already past the day.
Yep.
It's already gotten too big. So
That's
then the best thing that I've tell people is you go in there and you find a frame of eggs, you know, a nice pattern where she's laid up and you got eggs, and then you start seeing jelly, but you can't see anything in the jelly floating.
yes.
That is where you want to, that if you put your magnification unit on, then you'll be able to see that almost microscopic larvae in that jelly. And those are the ones that you want to graft from.
Yeah, you know what I learned when I started doing that grafting is the perfect age is a comma. When it's too old,
Actually, no,
it's a
I
C.
found that well, comma or a banana, just a long
Yes.
arcing, sort of a long arc. You don't want nothing like this. You want it kind of like
Nope.
that.
You don't want the C.
Nope, you don't want that. You don't want the C, but you want it where it's kind of wide.
Yeah.
And
Also, I'd say, like, all right, so it's an egg stands up on its end for 3 days, and as soon as it hatches, it falls over, right?
yeah. And Darren, you're right. Skinny Bee Man did a video on that, which was pretty good. And then Jason from Newer Honeybees. Now he used to have an excellent video on how to take it apart and sand it and all that.
Oh,
And I think Jason's health is diminished when it comes to his lower back. And he doesn't have any of that kind of stuff on his channel anymore. It's just about ordering queens and that's it. And that kind of stuff. But
I just buy more. They're so cheap. Buy 20 at a time and you get
you can buy 20 and you usually can find a couple of them that are decent. But I found if you back drag them across, let's say 800 grit paper or something like that, it'll work out fine for you.
Yeah.
And all that stuff and everything. So anyway, but let's see, Darren, beekeeper. So but well, it's about 10:30 and I'm going to go ahead and close the chat down, everybody. And thanks for coming in. And Jack, you can just hang tight here for a minute. And then everybody in the chat, thanks for coming in, and Brad and everybody else, and especially all the other folks that have been in here tonight, and Tom and Melissa and Rick Sutton. Glad to see him come in. I'd like to get him on the chat one night and pick his brain on a few things, so he really would bring a lot of good info to the floor here, I'm sure. So until next time, we'll see you later.
Hey, good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.